Camp preview, part 2 of 4. I'm going to talk about big plays, where they come from, and who has to make them on this edition of Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is up, good people? I'm Tony Wiggins here, your host of Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. It'll be every day again very, very soon because training camp will be started. We're on a little bit of abbreviated schedule right now with the off season, but we're still coming to you 4 times this week to bring you the comprehensive coverage that we give you every day as your podcast. We are live and free on all platforms, including YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe on the YouTube page. And we thank you for making us your first listen. So the last time you guys saw me, I did the first of a 4-part series talking about guys that just have to thrive, guys who need to step up for the Jaguars. And I named 5 people. I'm going to name 5 different people today. It might overlap just a little bit with the last list, but those are just 5 guys. The last show was 5 guys who just have to be as good as advertised this year for the Jaguars to lift themselves from what I call football purgatory. Now we're going to do something a little bit different. Today's show, we're going to name the 5 guys that have to make big plays. And you're going, isn't that the same thing? No, it's not the same thing. It's absolutely different because not everyone on the team that is good is a big play specialist. The last 5 guys have to consistently be the 5 people that we believe will be the 5 guys that come out of the tunnel every week that are consistently going to be amongst the best in the league at their respective positions. This is more or less guys that have to make plays, chunk plays. I'm going to use a game as an example. I'm going to use a game that the Jaguars fans probably want to forget, but it's a game that really, really personifies what has to happen for a team to elevate itself. And what that game is the game last year the Jaguars played in New York against the Jets, where seemingly both of these teams on paper were even. Both teams last year played their best football against tough opponents. The Jets beat the Titans. I think the Jets beat somebody else they wasn't supposed to beat. It might have been Buffalo or somebody. They beat somebody else that they weren't supposed to beat. The Jaguars last year probably played the best 2 games of the season against Cincinnati and Buffalo. The 2 teams that were probably the 2 best teams at the end of the playoffs last year from the AFC. They beat Buffalo and they lost on a walk-off field goal against the Bengals. So they had those things in common when they played each other. They were both playing with rookie coaches, with rookie quarterbacks that had been picked back-to-back and had just had an inconsistent season up to that point. And when they played, something happened. If you look at the statistics from that game, the Jaguars actually had an advantage in time of possession. The Jaguars actually had probably a little bit of an advantage in yardage, probably not rushing, but in passing yardage or total combined yardage, I think the Jaguars played extremely up to par. They even had a couple of 4th down stops against at that time, the Ron Middleton coached Jets because their coach, Robert Saleh, I believe, was out because of COVID protocols. But something happened in the game, and I'm going to tell you. The kid, Zach Wilson, got out of the pocket on 3rd and long, ran a touchdown for 55 yards. He probably should have been tackled twice, but a couple of guys gave up on the play. That was a long touchdown. Braxton Berrios ran back a 103-yard punt return. And then at the end of the game, to ice the game and put the game, make it a two-score game, the Jets on 4th down, when Zach Wilson was forced out of the pocket on 4th and goal, threw a ball up that an offensive lineman reached up and caught with 2 hands and scored the touchdown that ended up being the big difference in the game. There were no big plays for Jacksonville on the other side. There were 3 big plays in a game that was essentially evenly played. It was 26-21. And I'm telling you, those 3 things were the difference in the game. So sometimes, even though Zach Wilson is considered one of their better players, Braxton Berrios isn't. And damn sure ain't McDermott, the offensive lineman, that caught the ball when it was 2 receivers in the area, him, a receiver, and a Jaguars defensive back, and he went up and snagged that thing out of the air like it was a rebound. So big plays in games do make a difference. They make a huge difference. We're going to talk about the Jaguars, who can be those guys to produce chunk plays, the guys that can make a huge impact and a huge difference by making big plays. The Jaguars' big play guy last year is still on this list. He got hurt, Jamal Agnew. He was hurt last year, but he was one of those people that made the plays that you remember that kept the Jaguars in some games early, whether it was a kick return, a punt return, or one they don't classify as a kick or a punt return. There was a missed field goal that he caught 109 yards and ran it back for a touchdown. These are the things that you're going to need in order to win some games, especially games that are evenly played. And it's something that the Jaguars have sorely missed over the last few years, where they had one guy, the last guy they truly had. And whether you guys agree with it or not, Leonard Fournette was a dude that at some point, whether you like the way he played or not, he did go 91 in one year. And he did have a couple of other 60, 70-yard runs, whether it was against Denver or whoever, or Tennessee, where he might have gotten caught. I remember he ran a 70-some-yard touchdown on the first time he touched the ball from scrimmage against the Rams a few years back. So they miss having a guy like that on their team, and they haven't made a lot of plays like that since we left. So we mentioned one of them, Jamal Agnew, who's coming back off of an injury. He probably won't have the load that they started to give him from the line of scrimmage this year, because at one point Urban called him, I hate to mention it again, but Urban was the coach. He called him their best separator. That has to change in order for this team to be good. I'm not saying that he's not a separator, if that's a word that I had never heard that before, by the way, but just whatever. Look, guys that can make big plays. I think he's going to have a chance to do it because it looks like he's getting healthy. So he's going to have a chance to do it from both kick return, punt return, which he's very, very good at, and then maybe once or twice as an occasional gadget guy who can come into the game, put the ball in his hand, whether it be on some sort of jet sweep or some quick out or a double pass, whatever. However, you got to get the ball in his hand in a one-on-one situation where he can make one guy miss and get up the field on positive yardage. He's shown a propensity to do it, so I think he deserves to be on this list, especially when we consider that I think he'll be healthy. I'm going to tell you who the other 4 guys are with one caveat. It's not 4 guys. It's another 5 guys. The last names I'm going to put on this list are an either or a collective together, and I'll be able to explain that to you in segment 3. But you got to get segment 2 with me first, man. So just hang tight with me. And what we're going to do is we're going to tell you who the rest of the guys are on this list. We've already started out with Jamal Agnew, and we'll let you know who everyone else is on this list. This is a big plays, 5 guys, part 2 of our 4-part pre-training camp series on things that have to happen. And we're using the number 5, the 5 guys or 6 that have to make chunk plays, big plays, plays that change the game for Jacksonville if they're going to have the chance to win close games. If you want to have the chance to make sure you don't have close calls by breaking down on the side of the road, there's one place for you to do that, and that place is Rock Auto. I'm telling you right now, rockauto.com is where you can go to save time and, of course, money when using rockauto.com. The thing is, I said where you got to go. You actually don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to go to a chain store. You don't have to drive to another county. You can sit right on your computer and get in touch with rockauto.com and order all the parts and accessories your car will ever need to make sure it is functioning up to the max. And rockauto.com is going to save you money, maybe 30, 40, even 50%. And then you're going to get the great parts and accessories that you need for any make or model of your vehicle without people asking you how many liters of oil your car takes and all of that stuff. What you need to do is go to rockauto.com right now. There's going to be a box that's going to ask you, how did you hear about us? I want you to write locked on, those 2 words, locked on, in that box. Keep it simple, man. Don't get all long-winded. Don't say T-Wig from Locked On Jaguars. Go locked on in that how did you hear about us box. It's very, very important that you establish that we sent you because they're family and you're family too, right? So go to rockauto.com, make sure you write locked on in the how did you hear about us box and start saving you some time and some money because of their amazing selection for over 2 decades now. It's rockauto.com. Run it down here with you on our pre-training camp special. 5 guys that have to make big plays. These are your big play artists. These are your guys that you can count on when all things are going bad. They can switch field position for you. They can do things that other people can't do. They don't have to necessarily be the best players on the team. They don't have to even be the most consistent players on the team. They just need to be Johnny on the spot and use that speed and athleticism and that right nowism. I always use that term, but this time I'm using it in a good way. The right nowism, and be a guy who's in the feeling for has a feel for the moment. All right, Trevor Lawrence. He was on the last list as having to be one of your 5 best players. Guess what? This is why you make the big bucks, and this is why you get all the attention, because Trevor Lawrence has to be on this list as well. Trevor Lawrence is, I think, the best player on the team. Trevor Lawrence is a generational talent at quarterback. He has the potential to be outstanding. And when that's you, you have to be consistent, and you have to have the ability to also turn onions into lemonade sometimes. So we're going to put it on Trevor Lawrence. We're going to put that pressure on his back, that while he doesn't have to be a hero all the time, he does have to be one of those players that can throw guys open now that they've improved the staff, that can make people miss in the background, that can make an occasional play like the one I mentioned Zach Wilson made last year against the Jaguars, where he should have been caught in the backfield, and then he probably should have been tackled 30 yards down the field, and he was able to juke or somehow put a spell on one of the Jaguars players where they didn't want to tackle him, and he ran in to the end zone for a touchdown. Or he wiggled his way out of traffic late in the game and threw it up, and guess what? Johnny on the spot, offensive lineman, reached up and caught it. It still took a lot of magic for the quarterback to be able to pull that off. So we got to give him credit for being Johnny on the spot. Once you improve things around Trevor, and he doesn't have to be the hero all the time, it opens up the opportunity for him to actually be the hero some of the time. So you're going to need the quarterback. You're going to need the one guy that touches the ball every single play outside of the center to be able to make plays above the X's and O's in order to lift his team out of football purgatory. Another guy I'm going to mention is a guy we didn't see a lot of last year, but Trevor Lawrence knows him very well because he saw a lot of him in college. That's his old teammate at Clemson. How about Travis Etienne? Travis Etienne was drafted to be a weapon by you know who. Travis Etienne is actually a very good football player. And when you go to practice, you watch him. He's 100% healthy, and he has that little bounce in his step. He had that bounce in college too, where if he gets into the open field, he turns out to be extremely dangerous. Now, there's 2 ways to get a guy into an open field. One is to do it by design, and 2, you have to be able to have a guy like him who can make the first man miss. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but a lot of football is designed where if everyone does everything they're supposed to do on the offensive side of the ball as well as the defensive side of the ball, what has to happen is it's usually a situation where it's one-on-one. At some point, that linebacker reads the play, that running back does everything he's supposed to do in terms of pass protection, and then he bleeds out to the flat, and that linebacker sees it happening. That quarterback throws the ball out there, stop. Right at that point, everyone's done what they're supposed to do. Now, you have to, if you're the defensive guy, have a team that's good enough where that guy is comfortable being in that situation every single play, and he's going to make the tackle. Or as the offensive guy, you have to have someone that goes, you kidding me? You ain't about to stop me one-on-one. I don't care how good you think you are or what you know. Now, what's going to happen is nobody's going to beat anybody all the time. But you need to have that guy that can turn that from a 50-50 situation into a 70-30 situation. And I think Travis Etienne has some stuff about him, leg strength, quickness, the ability to escape people, and he can get up to his top speed very, very quick. And then you don't have to give him the ball. You can throw it to him because he can actually catch the ball too, like a little bit of a slot receiver. So Travis Etienne, because of opportunity and skill set, is going to be a guy that I think in his touches, whether he splits with James Robinson or not, he has to make his touches count, and he has to get first downs and touchdowns. All right, we're going to go over the last 2 or 3 players, as we talked about earlier. And I'm going to mention this one in this segment, Christian Kirk, because at some point, Christian Kirk is number 3. At some point, he does have to be a guy who didn't just get his contract because he was what was available, and the Jaguars are hoping and wishing that the best football days are ahead of him. He has to actually be the guy to earn his money. He actually has to be the guy that on this team, when it comes to going downfield, that on 3rd and 10, if you get that situation 15 times in the game, Trevor Lawrence needs to be able to look in that direction 11 or 12 times before he looks anywhere else. Don't just let things come to you. I know you can run the offense and let the football gods open up the doors of the secondary and you go where you're supposed to go. That's fine. But at some point, when you paid the money, and not only when you paid the money, but when you started playing, a quarterback needs to have a guy he resonates with, where just like you make us your first listen, that's going to be my first look. And when you got a guy who you're going to automatically, regardless of what window opens up and where, the eye in the sky says you're supposed to go, you're going to be like, no, I know all that, but where's he at? What is he doing? That's when you know you have a difference maker. And at some point, Christian Kirk is going to have to do that. Why did I name Christian Kirk? Because I think he's their fastest guy on the outside. And 2, because I actually watched him have a pretty good game last year against the Jaguars, where if he doesn't play well coming out of the half when he was with Arizona, I'm not sure Arizona finds a way to win that game. They really needed someone to happen. And it seemed like on that drive last year, Kyler Murray went right to Christian Kirk and said, I'm going to use you to get us down the field. And I think Christian Kirk needs to use that game as a little bit of, I would say not an omen, but maybe use that as a little bit of a fire starter, right? And say, I did that in that stadium on that team. Now I need to do that in that stadium for that team. And Christian Kirk needs to be the other guy. That's a little bit, that one has a little optimism attached to it. I'll tell you who it is that it's supposed to be one player left, but it's going to be 2. 2 guys, and I'll tell you why they're tied at the hip, in my opinion, and why they'll have to be impact players who makes big plays. And I'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars after I'll tell you guys about betonline.net, which is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. The NBA, NHL are gone, but baseball, it's a daily thing, man. You have to know the pitchers. You have to know the ERAs. You have to know who's in the lineup and who's not, how many days of rest they have. There's a lot to go in to making sure that you can get it right on betting on baseball. And the best place to do that is BetOnline, because it is your continued source for all your sport wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, the one I just mentioned, including baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. All of that stuff is hot and heavy right now. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action, because BetOnline is, of course, where the game starts. And you guys start here with me every single day, at least every time we broadcast the show here on Locked On Jaguars, and we are always eternally grateful for you doing that. Also, today is Wednesday, and there's a Locked On NFL show out today with my man James Rapine, just as there are Monday through Friday. Normally I'm on there, but I had some medical stuff to do yesterday. But Locked On NFL is out right now, and it's a national perspective with a lot of local flavor to it, because our experts talk about the NFL as a whole, and sometimes they even talk on the team that they cover. And we break it down, man, and it's for every fan across the country. So make sure you tune in to Locked On NFL wherever you get your podcast. It's free on all platforms. And go to YouTube and like and subscribe to that YouTube page as well. All right, we're talking about 5 guys that have to make a difference and guys that have to make big plays. It's a little bit different than what we talked about in our first of the 4-part series that we're doing before training camp, where we named 5 guys who have to consistently be the best players on the team. This is a little bit different, and this last and final segment is going to really show you why I believe it's just a little bit different for me. I'm going to name 2 players. If you recall, one of the guys on my list from guys that have to be consistently good is Josh Allen. And the reason why Josh Allen was on, you see, I'm snaking this plug up, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to do it right in front of y'all because we have to plug in to make sure we don't lose energy. But Josh Allen was on that list, even though Trevon Walker was the number one overall pick. And the reason why I used Josh Allen on said list is because of the fact that I firmly believe that Josh Allen, there have been a lot of excuses made for his play over the last 2 or 3 years that he didn't have anyone on the opposite side of him the way he did as a rookie when he put up a lot of numbers because he had Calais Campbell and because he had Yannick Ngakoue. Well, now he does. Josh Allen is going to have a player on the other side that will allow the team to not double Josh Allen. And if they do, Trevon Walker is going to have a tremendous amount of plays that he can make. The reason why I'm putting Trevon and Devin Lloyd as 1 and 1A or 5 and 5A on my 1 of 5 players that have to be good on this team, the reason why I'm doing that is because they have to come up with the big plays because of their youth, because of their athleticism, because I think it may take them both a while to get acclimated to all of the idiosyncrasies and the nuances of playing in the NFL week from week and the different looks they're going to get. The one thing that they do have is they have athletic youth. Just like Josh Allen had as a rookie when he was trying to figure it out, but he had veterans on the other side that were making plays that allowed him to think freely, run and flow to the football and use his athletic more than using his mind that was still in development stage. And I think now that transfers over to Trevon Walker and Devin Lloyd. They may not be ready to make consistent plays all the time without making mistakes. But what their athleticism should allow them to do is to be able to flourish in situations where they just use their athleticism to be Johnny on the spot and run and flex and make plays. And I've seen it done before. Yannick Ngakoue made a career in Jacksonville out of making big plays. The argument is whether, and right, wrong, or indifferent, is whether he can make them consistently enough to be a big-time alpha that you pay long-term money to. But no one can talk about the fact that this guy is top 5 in the league since he came into the league in pressures, top 5 in the league since he came into the league. I might be top 3 of strips, and I think he's one of the leaders in edge rushers that have actually scored touchdowns or caused turnovers that led to touchdowns. And he did a lot of that early. Because he had Calais Campbell here, he was able to play free and didn't have to do a lot of thinking. Josh had his best statistical year. Josh Allen is when those guys were here, Yannick, and he was able to play free, and he was just run and hit. And I think when you got a guy like Devin Lloyd that had 6 interceptions in college, he has really, really long arms. In order to continue to do that, some people may call it lucky, but I think luck is when opportunity meets preparation. And he just has a knack for the ball. He's Johnny on the spot. I think in big games against Georgia, when folks talk about the lack of statistics that Trevon Walker had, I believe when you look back at the Alabama game and you look back at the Michigan game, in the Michigan game, he had a key sack on 3rd down. In the Michigan game, he made a key play on a great run design that was aimed to overwhelm Georgia, and it didn't because he smacked the hell out of the dude who was pulling, an All-American, by the way, and he made the tackle in the backfield. And then against Alabama, in a game that if Alabama had scored 1 touchdown early instead of kicking field goals, there were 2 plays. One was made by him and another was made by a kid named Kelee Ringo. Ringo ran down the tight end of Alabama when he was headed for a touchdown. And on another play, Trevon Walker used his athleticism to run down Ajay Hall, who was a wide receiver who appeared to also be heading for a touchdown, and he got caught by Trevon Walker from behind. I just believe tip balls. I saw him tip balls that led to interceptions against the University of Florida. I just believe the athleticism and the opportunity to make just big splash plays and be Johnny on the spot favors both of those young players because that's what they're going to have to lean on early until they get the prerequisite experience to be every down, consistent, dominant forces in the league. They're going to have to use their athleticism. So I've made it 1 and 1A instead of using one guy. I used them both. I really do think the length and the athleticism that they bring to the table is something that the Jaguars sorely need and sorely miss. And it makes up for a lot of deficiencies in actually actually being able to play the game all the way through and through and through like a veteran, they can at least get by for a while with their athleticism. Think about Joe Tryon last year in Tampa, how he was used coming off the edge, and he made a lot of flash plays at a lot of critical moments for Tampa Bay. And those are the things that I believe both of these players are capable of doing. So the two of them together are combined as one guy here for this top 5 list. Tomorrow, the Jaguars cannot make the 5 things that absolutely cannot happen heading into training camp and through training camp if this team is going to pull itself out of the bottom tier of teams in the National Football League. Make sure you stay with me with that because we're going to bring that up. I hate bringing it up, but these are things that absolutely cannot happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to put a little mojo in the air so that they actually don't occur if you want to see the Jaguars advance and get better moving forward. All right, thank you for joining me here on Locked On Jaguars. I am your man, Tony Wiggins, here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. And make sure you like and subscribe and follow us on every single platform you can. Training camp's about 3 weeks away. We'll have everything and all the stuff that you need, a little bit more than 3 weeks, as we get ready to head into the preseason and then the regular season in 2022, where we all hope the Jaguars' fortunes under Doug Peterson make a big, big change for the future. You guys keep taking care of each other, and we'll see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars.